Deputy Speaker, I thank the member for tabling today's motion. I will respond to the motion in two parts. I will start by addressing the macro picture before zooming in to the micro picture. Now, a hallmark of our government since our independence has been our ability to look long-term. We see the big picture, the macro picture. This includes assessing the world and the winds of change, as well as identifying the trends, opportunities, and challenges for Singapore. In this House yesterday, I shared our economic outlook for Singapore, including our GDP growth and inflation projections. Now, for the sake of brevity in this response, I shall not repeat those details, and members can refer to my speech yesterday. What I would like to focus on in my response is how we have planned for and laid foundations for the long term. First, we maintain a stable macroeconomic environment so businesses and households can make economic decisions with confidence. And a core tenet is our exchange rate-centered monetary policy, which has helped us manage inflation. And during this period of rising inflationary pressures, the MAS has preemptively tightened monetary policy since October last year, as the member has observed. Now, this long-standing policy has directly helped dampen imported inflation. How? To the Associate Professor's point on food prices as well as energy prices, let me dive deeper. For global food prices, while global food commodity prices increased by an average of 25.4% year-on-year over the first 5 months of 2022, domestic food prices increased by an average of 3.6% year-on-year over the same period. 25.4%, 3.6%. On energy prices, likewise, even as global energy prices rose by 27.5%, energy-related components in Singapore's consumer price index, which include the cost of electricity, gas and petrol, increased by 13.6% year-on-year between January and May. 27.5%, 13.6%. Second, we continue to build our trade links to the world, to diversify our sources of imports and exports, even as the world is experiencing a retreat of globalization. We concluded the world's largest free trade agreement, RCEP, in November 2020, and are part of the CPTPP. We have also signed the Pacific Alliance Singapore Free Trade Agreement in January and are on track to conclude an FTA with Mercosur. We have also signed digital economy agreements, digital economy partnership agreements, and are in the process of negotiating a green economy agreement with Australia. Now, these agreements help us to diversify our imports, open markets for our businesses, and future-proof our economy. Third, we continue to stay open and connected to the world, and to innovation, investments, and talent. And despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, we attracted 11.8 billion Singapore dollars in fixed asset investments last year. We have also secured significant investments. For example, Sanofi has committed to setting up a euro 400 million vaccine production facility in Singapore. Now, these inbound investments create good jobs for Singaporeans, make our economy vibrant and competitive, and prepare us for the next pandemic. Long term. Overall, strong growth will support job creation, wage growth, and help address inflationary pressures. So, as we continue to plan and execute our macro and strategic plans, we also keep our eye firmly on the micro, the ground picture. So, macro, plan, execute, but also keep our eye firmly on what's happening on the ground. It's reflected in how we navigated Singapore through the COVID crisis and support Singaporeans and local businesses during this period of rising costs. Now, during the height of COVID, we committed close to $100 billion over the last 2 years, part of it to support businesses hit by COVID restrictions. In particular, our job support scheme, which provided wage subsidies to employers to help them retain workers, saved 165,000 local jobs between March and December 2020. We also rolled out initiatives such as our Singapore Rediscovers vouchers for our embattled tourism sector, and collectively about $300 million in vouchers and out-of-pocket payments were generated through SRV transactions. And this provided crucial support to our local tourism business. In anticipation of higher prices, we rolled out support for Singaporeans in Budget 2022, including the Jobs and Business Support Package to help businesses and workers, as well as the Household Support Package to help households with their daily needs. And to help Singaporeans cope with rising inflationary pressures, we also brought forward the implementation of some of the measures, including our CDC vouchers and our Small Business Recovery Grant. The additional $1.5 billion support package DPM Lawrence Wong announced on 21st June provides immediate and targeted relief to low-income and vulnerable Singaporeans who are disproportionately affected by higher prices. The measures included in the package also help our local companies transform and cope with rising energy costs, becoming more energy efficient. It also provides targeted relief for specific groups, such as self-employed persons who depend on their vehicles for livelihoods and hence are more adversely affected by energy cost increases. These include taxi drivers and delivery drivers. Overall, we designed the package to avoid stoking further inflationary pressures and distorting price signals, while being, as the member suggested, fiscally responsible and sustainable. And as DPM Wong said yesterday, if the situation worsens significantly, we will be prepared to do more. Now let me turn into some of the specific issues raised by Associate Professor James Lim in a speech on MAS's monetary policy response to inflation. Well, specifically, we need to recognize that the global nature of the price pressures we are facing, which is affecting all of our trading partners. The sharp pickup of inflation of food and oil prices since Q4 last year principally reflects the effects of serious disruptions of global supply, including due to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So it's inevitable, as the member had mentioned, that some of these prices will affect our economy. Many Singaporeans do accept that the situation requires some adjustments to the higher prices, and given the circumstances, I will explain a few points below. Well, the MAS, using its monetary policy, has strengthened the exchange rate by at least 5% on an annualized basis, which has kept domestic food inflation, for example, to one-fifth of global food inflation thus far. And when the MAS decides to extend in how the MAS is deciding to the extent of tightening the exchange rate takes many different factors into account. Foremost is the fact that the strengthening exchange rate cannot fully offset global prices without causing immediate negative consequences on growth and therefore the labour market. Indeed, this is precisely the reason why many advanced central banks are guarded in the speed and also the extent to which they will hike interest rates. This monetary policy action in of themselves have attendant spillover effects that we must all take into account in a very uncertain, dynamic, and also challenging economic environment. Therefore, a judicious blend of tight monetary policy and targeted supportive fiscal policy, carefully calibrated, is most appropriate. In fact, the member mentioned that the fiscal policy must be timely, targeted, temporary. In rebating back fiscal upsides, that's what we've precisely done with the $1.5 billion support package. And if you look at it, the combined budgets of 2020-21 together with monetary policy decisions, both fiscal and monetary policy together, supported Singapore's GDP growth by about 1 percentage point in 2021 and prevented the deterioration of unemployment rate by 4 percentage points, even as the combined expansionary monetary macroeconomic policy responses was non-inflationary. And at this juncture, the current round of combined fiscal and monetary policy responses is expected to contain medium-term inflation without significant loss of output or inadvertently adding further to the underlying tightness in the economy. On indexing financial assistance payments to inflation, I would like just to say that the government regularly reviews our schemes to take into account needs and affordability, and inflation is one of the many factors taken into consideration. Madam Deputy Speaker, allow me to sum up. I've responded to the member's notion by articulating our government's macro and micro approach. We plan and execute for the long term, and at the same time, continue to have the dexterity to zoom in into the details that matter on the ground to Singaporeans and to Singaporean businesses. Indeed, the livelihoods of our people are not a theoretical exercise to us. Rather, we focus on strong job creation and wage growth as the best ways to help Singaporeans tide through these immediate difficult times and ensure that we have sufficient resources to tackle the long-term challenges. The mindset and bias towards action have allowed us to weather storms and seize opportunities throughout our history. That is the hallmark of our government. This is our commitment to Singapore, and we will continue to do our utmost to deliver on this commitment, especially in these challenging times. Thank you.